Hello and welcome back to the Basketball Passport Pod. I am Leigh Ellis, joined by Anthony Irwin. Anthony, how you doing, man? It's been a while since we last spoke.
Yeah, it was like I was half expecting like a Argentinian beard that you would come back with. Like I was I was ready for anything. I
Yes,
think
well,
you probably had a better holiday though. You've had a better break from the show than I have.
who knows? I mean, I certainly had a lot of fun. I was down in South America, down in Argentina and Peru, and that video off the top there is from La Bombonera. Here it is there. Now, unfortunately, while I was there, that video wasn't taken by me. That was actually from a few weeks ago because their season has ended. But a huge shout out to the Boca Juniors Basketball Club because they gave me private access and a tour to go and shoot around and check out the arena there, which was really, really cool. I'll get into that a little bit more in just a few moments. We'll just tee up what it is that we're even doing here because this is the second of our weekly basketball shows. This one is the one where we take a look a little bit around the world of basketball. Not necessarily only focused here on the NBA. That is what happens on our Sunday night shows. So if you want to follow us, you can follow us here at youtube.com/basketball passport or Lakers Lounge, which is of course where how many days a week do you go live on or do you pod there on Lakers Lounge?
5 at least. And
Yeah.
then if we have like an emergency podcast, occasionally more. It's
Yeah.
way too much of my voice and my face. It's just it's a lot.
So you can follow Anthony there or myself at Leigh Ellis 76 on YouTube or on the other socials, just Leigh Ellis, no 76 on the end there. And if you want to be a part of the show, shoot us an email. Shoot us an email. I haven't cracked this joke for a while, but it's the old basketball passport pod at gmail.com, which is
Get a joke? Is there a joke there somewhere?
It's didn't get too much traction in the time we were away there, so we could certainly use a couple of emails and some people if anyone wants to know what's going on, what we're up to, what the show is all about. But today we are going to talk first of all, we're actually going to talk a little bit about last night's game. Again, we don't normally talk NBA here, but last night's game was maybe a preview of the finals, an incredible game there. We'll have a little look as well about some of the other stuff that's happening, the Jimmy Butler drama in Miami. And then I've got some news updates for myself, international side of things from the Luka Doncic Foundation. And also some may remember what happened in Croatia in Zagreb early last year. I have some updates there as well. And then I'll talk a little bit more about my time in Buenos Aires because, man, have you been there? Have you been down to Buenos Aires?
No, I need to though. You showed a picture of you sitting in front of a plate that was just beef, and you had a nice glass of like red wine there next to you. I think it's on your Instagram.
It is.
And I was like, man, I think
Ah,
I think I was hosting. We had over the holiday, we had my parents, we had my brothers, we had obviously my family in the house. So I was juggling hosting duties, and I just see that plate, and I'm like, Lee's doing this better than I am.
yeah,
Like
that was
he's just a lot better at this than I am.
Oh, well, that was at La Brigada, a very famous restaurant there in the capital, and one of those restaurants where you walk in, the guy comes over with the menu. It's just there's a million different cuts of beef, and there's 2 million different wine options. I just said to him, just whatever, man. Honestly,
Yeah.
whatever. I just want steak and wine, whatever you want. And he said, "How hungry are you?" I said, "I mean, I'm hungry enough. I'm not like, ravaged here, but yeah, make me something." He came back. He just put the plate down. Weirdest thing, I should have got a video of it. I remember thinking at the time, being mesmerized. He cut the steak with a spoon. I've never seen. I know. I've never
Whoa.
seen it before. And
How
now
do
it
they cook
feels.
it?
Well, he cooked it medium, so it just sliced through it very easily. But I've just never seen that before, and it's one of those things. Afterwards, I'm like, without video, or this is old photos, or it didn't happen. I'm like, it's going to be very weird to explain that to people that it actually did
Was it
happen.
like a
But
roast? It must have been some kind of a chuck roast or something like that. Like,
I think it was Bilete del Lomo. I think it was.
mm,
But I can't remember now. And again, I was caught up in the moment, and not
yeah,
everything. I keep saying to myself, not everything has to go up on social media, but
yeah,
that's one that I should have I should have got. So
yeah. I've over the break, like it's funny in the moment, you're like, I really want to be in the moment. I don't want to take the phone out here too much and take too many pictures because these like, I hadn't had Christmas with my family in like 5 years because we moved out here to
Mm.
Texas. So I really wanted to be like, present and all that stuff. But then after the fact, you're like, man, I really need more pictures of all of
Yeah.
that stuff. It's a funny trade-off.
It is, and that's one of those ones I thought this guy's going to bring out this huge carving knife. Instead, he just gets out the old. Honestly, it was just like a big tablespoon, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
wow. But yeah, I
Tricks on
love
you. He
going.
actually sharpened the spoon. Like it's
Yeah,
actually
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a you're not allowed to eat with that spoon. Do
No,
not eat with that spoon.
but I love going into a restaurant and just saying like, honestly, just give me whatever you got. I'm sure it'd be
Yeah.
fantastic, and it was. So
The
yeah,
the
we'll get into
Japanese
that.
omakase, right? Like that's
Yeah, exactly.
you go to a
Yeah,
sushi
yeah.
restaurant and you just like, all right, bring it on.
So before we get to that, anyway, yeah, last night I thought not only was this potentially a finals preview, but a game that really lived up to the hype here between the Cavs and the Thunder. I mean, that's the hardest thing to do in sport when there's a build up. It's like, oh man, this is going to be a big game because so many times we see games where, maybe a player's out or it's a blowout or it doesn't quite live up to it. But Cavs Thunder, game one, game two is next week. What did you take away from that?
You know, I normally say that like the best basketball feels like a boxing match where you can actually see the punches thrown and the counters to the counters and all that stuff. This actually felt more like fencing where it was, because it's not heavyweight boxing. You have Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, a really small backcourt. You have Shea Gilgeous Alexander, who obviously is a perimeter player, but there was so much skill involved. There was so much quick timing and read react type of stuff that both of these teams work off of. And like every little mistake went punished, and every mistake that went unpunished, you would feel on the other side of the court. It was so much fun to watch. Like you said, absolutely lived up to the billing. And I actually think ESPN and the NBA deserves a lot of credit for really thrusting that matchup upon the public and saying, no, this is special. This is the first time that two teams have matched up with 15 or 10 game winning streaks, both of them going into the game. Could be a finals preview. It's like a really young and up and coming team on both sides here. And here's why you need to know about these guys. And yeah, it was brilliant basketball. It was absolutely beautiful. Made me think that the Lakers have zero chance whatsoever against either of those teams.
Yeah.
But it was spectacular. It was incredible to
Yeah.
watch.
Well, and I look at it as well. I'm like, how did the Hawks beat the Cavs twice in 3 days, man? Like, in Cleveland as well, and then down here in Atlanta, it was, it was a bit of a bullying by the Hawks. So
Yeah.
that's what's encouraging, but also puzzling to me because I do think the Cavs right now are better than the Celtics in the East and probably are the favorite. But I'm also like, man, if they match up in the Hawks and, maybe the first or second round here, though, the Hawks are probably a chance because that's sometimes just how it goes. Teams just match up well against other teams. And, that's a situation there where you're like, I still don't think, I don't think, like, once you could say, okay, maybe the Hawks got lucky, but twice in 3 days is like, that's more than
Yeah.
just, just getting good fortune to go your way. But,
Well,
talk. Oh, sorry, just
I
one
I
thing.
was just
You
gonna
you
go
mentioned
for it,
there
go for it.
about ESPN, and I thought Mike Breen brought the finals energy last night.
Yes. Yeah.
He hit us with a bang. I mean, it wasn't a Steph bang bang against the
Yeah.
Thunder there from 2016, but it was almost like, all right, I might be having I might have to bang here. So he dropped one, and
Yeah.
and I thought it was good. But again, it's funny when you look at the dialogue about the NBA and the NBA haters love to, the TV's there, LeBron and Steph and KD are out. Who's the next face of the NBA? Well, again, there doesn't have to be an anointed person. You just want to see good quality basketball. This was great defense, I thought, last night. Like, really tough
Mhm.
defense, great shot making. Like, that was basketball at its best. Two, small market teams. I don't care about any of that stuff. I love watching Shea Gilgeous-Alexander out there. I love watching Donovan and Darius Garland. And the Thunder still have Chet Holmgren to come back as well. So that's what makes it even more impressive. But overall, just I was really happy to see a game built up like that, and it was action from the tip. And I thought the NBA deserves credit. I mean, it lived up to the hype there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you mentioned the matchup aspect of it, with what the Hawks are doing, or how the Hawks match up against the Cavs, and the Lakers played the Thunder fairly closely in the last time that they played against each other, and I do really think that, like, as we head into this new CBA where the NBA really wants, I've been calling it the NFLification of the league, where there, like, parity is going to be, legislated, and we'll see what, indirect results come of that. But I do think one of them is going to be that, like, we aren't going to see the perfect team. I don't think ever again. We're never going to see under the CBA a Kevin Durant Golden State Warriors situation.
Right.
I just don't think, like, that's never going to happen again. And if it does, it'll be like, a flash in the pan, because guys are going to have to get paid so quickly. And what that'll mean is that, like, matchups are going to matter more, and how teams avoid those matchups is going to be another factor here moving forward. But yeah, on the one hand, like, I actually wanted to run this by you, that NFLification thing
Yeah.
and that concept. Um, in the NFL, you play 17 games over an 18-week period, and if everybody kind of hovers at or around 500, you're looking at, like, 10 losses is kind of the median there, right? And 10 losses isn't as it doesn't feel like you're trudging through mud to get through 10 losses. But if the NBA is going to try to, legislate parity the way that they are, and everybody is going to be hovering around 500, 40 something losses is quite a bit to go through.
Right. Right.
And so, like, I don't know, like, I know that you and we've talked a lot about, like, shortening the season and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
I have found myself wondering a lot, because you look around at like the various conversations about various teams, and last night we saw a game between two teams that, like, their fan base is just walking on air right now. They're both Cavs fans and Thunder fans are just loving life right now. They're probably the only two fan bases that actually feel that way. And everybody else is kind of like, yeah, I feel okay sometimes, and then a little less okay other times. What do you think about, like, the notion of kind of making everybody go through that many losses over the course of a season?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, for me, I think about those Kevin Durant Warriors teams, and, doing a daily TV show, it felt hard because you had to pretend other teams had a chance. And that
Yeah.
that that
Yeah.
that sucked, honestly, that part of it. And even with the Cavs and LeBron, even when other teams were okay in the East, the Pacers,
Uh-huh.
and the Celtics there, yeah. But it was, yeah, and the Hawks won 60 games one season, but it was like you got no chance though, you know. Whereas I personally, and I also relate this to my experience of living in England and being in Europe with soccer, and every single season you used to see, now it has changed somewhat, Manchester United at the top, and then Arsenal, and then Liverpool, and then Bayern Munich, and Real Madrid, and Juventus. And again, it's like the Lakers and the Knicks, like those glamour teams. You always want, you want them to be good enough, but you also want your team to beat them. You don't want to beat up on those teams, but you want them to be like, hey man, we got the Lakers tonight, we got a good win, or the
Yeah.
Knicks, whatever. Um, but I do prefer it when I look right now at the league, and I'm like, who's the favorite to win? And I would say probably the Thunder. And I think they are, even though they lost there last night. But I think overall their depth and defense and balance and all those things are there. But
Getting
you
Chet
know what?
back.
If the Nuggets get it together, I still have a lot of faith in the Nuggets. I think Jokic, of course, we've seen what he can do. So there are other teams there the Celtics, of course, in the East. And the Bucks. Giannis. I always have this belief in Giannis because he's so competitive and he's so good and he's won a championship. So I look around and I'm like, we saw a great game last night, but I also wouldn't be shocked if both of those teams don't make it to the finals because there are other teams capable of knocking them off. Again, referencing the Hawks in the East. So I prefer it when there's at least some intrigue and some like genuine belief that some other teams could come through here and succeed, rather than in years gone by where you're making up possibilities for other teams to compete when deep down nobody had a chance. So Cavs Warriors 4 years in a row, it was like, was it that exciting? I think of course 2016 was great. But then 17 and 18 were not great finals. 9 games in total, and the Warriors won all of those. Their 8 games very, very comfortably. So I don't think that's great. I prefer it when there's a bit of intrigue and a bit of genuine, like, hey man, a couple of these teams could really get it together and cause some problems. So, I know that the NBA is, as you say, trying to make parity a thing. And I think we've seen that over the finals appearances over the last 4 or 5 years. We haven't had a repeat champion since those Warriors in 17, 18. And we've had teams like the Bucks and the Suns and the Mavs in the finals. I think that's great. I think that's what you want overall from a product, that fans go into a season believing if things bounce our way, we could be the team. I mean, the Mavs are a good example. They made the finals last year. They were cruising along. They've got a few injuries and illnesses right now. That stomach virus really went through that team there. But again, I think with Clay, Kyrie, and Luka, if they're all healthy, they could also cause some real problems in the West. And it wouldn't be a shock if they get back, and make another deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think, look, if they, again, everything could be fixed by just shortening the season a little bit, right? And then, 30 losses over the same time span that we're talking about, 40 wins or 40 potentially, that's very different. And I do kind of think that if the league wants to do this, and like the other thing too is that scarcity of games makes these things more, they mean more. Last night's game was incredible. It felt like an event, but it was still 1 of 82 for both of those teams.
Yeah.
And it'll never happen, and it's kind of moot to continue to bring it up. But like, I think the more reasons and the more things that we point at for why they're being kind of penny wise, dollar dumb with how many games that they're playing. Maybe, just maybe, that conversation will make its way to the league office.
Yeah, well, and again, this comes back to me where in soccer you only play twice during a season, once home, once away. Now you may face that same team in a different competition, like the Champions League or something like that, but for the most part, you are going to see you got one chance at home, one chance away, and there is that scarcity of like if you're the Thunder last night, it's like, okay, Cavs got us at their place. Let's see if we can get them now. When we get a chance to take care of business on our home court next week. That's what you want. You don't want it to be like, then they play again a week later, and a week later, then they play again a week after that, and that's when they start resting players, and it loses its juice. I mean, last night again is the example of what I've talked about in the past. Is guys wanting to really make a regular season game mean something, send a message like, hey, we might face these guys again. Let's show them what we can do, rather than what has been happening in the recent times where guys are just like, who cares? It's only the regular season, So I think that's a good thing. It was a good game. Can't wait for the rematch next week. While I was away too, and while we were away from each other, Jimmy Butler in the Heat. It's man.
What a wild swing of the pendulum, right?
I know.
Everything that we love about the league was in that game, and then right back to like nonsense.
Yeah. It sounds like, for all intents and purposes, he's played his last game with the Heat. They've suspended him for 7 games. Obviously, they're going to try to trade him, and it'll be interesting if they can't get a trade done before the 7 games suspension ends. And then what do? Do they just pay him to stay away? I think so. I don't think he comes back there. But Jimmy Butler, look, I think he's got a proven playoff record. I think he steps up in the playoffs. But he also has a proven record for basically every situation he's left
Lighting
being
stuff on
awful.
fire.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. The Bulls didn't end well there. The Timberwolves was just a complete disaster. And then Philadelphia, who made the big trade for him, was like, I think he comes with a little bit of baggage here. I think Miami's actually was a perfect team for him. You know, I think he likes the hard toughness there of Pat Riley. But it also seems to have worn off on both of them. And really for me, this goes back to the playoffs last year when he was commenting, saying he was going to beat the Celtics if he played and all that. And Pat Riley, at his end of season exit interview, basically just said, "Keep your mouth shut if you're not
Yeah.
playing."
Unless you're playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I respect that from Pat Riley, that he's like, he doesn't want his guys shooting their mouth off if they're not playing. But that appears to have been kind of probably what took us to this path now where Jimmy's like, I want out and I want to go anywhere except Memphis, apparently. I don't know why he's actually against Memphis. I think that's a good situation for him. Or a good, they're a legit contender in the West. But my question to you, as always is the case, do guys like him understand how trades work and how the salary cap works and the CBA and stuff? Because
No.
he's got a $52 million player option next season, and he's on. I
Yeah.
think he's on 49 million around this season. Now, you don't have to have the precise dollar amount, but you have to be pretty close to it. So, which team out there can seriously even make a challenge to to trade for a guy who may be a rental? You're going to have to gut some of your team anyway to get him. So, I mean, is there a situation out there that you think he can be found?
It all just kind of comes down to if Miami ever is willing to take Bradley Beal back in a trade,
Right.
because I don't think a third team is all that interested in taking on Beal's contract. You asked why he isn't interested in going to the Memphis Grizzlies. I think it's more specifically that he wants to go to Phoenix, where Matt Ishbia is like the only owner who is willing to give him the max 2-year extension that he is expecting.
Yeah.
And like, we could say this is about, the Heat haven't been competitive enough for him, or they haven't made long enough runs into the playoffs, or we can say it's, about Pat Riley and him kind of butting heads in the media, whatever. It really seems like this is just about the money. This is just about, Miami doesn't want to give him the max extension. He's 35 years old right now. He probably isn't going to have very many opportunities after this to get his hands on. I think Kendrick Perkins is throwing out numbers of like 2 years, $120 million extension, and how and like Ishbia is the only guy who's willing to do it. And yeah, like, we just haven't really seen somebody be this brazen through leaks, because I think this was a leak. Windhorst spoke about this after speaking to his agent Mark Bartelstein about Jimmy's preferred destination, and then other people have done a lot of good work, kind of connecting the dots. It's like, oh, okay, it is just about the extension, and he can say he wants to play with Kevin Durant, or he can say that he wants to play in a bigger market than Memphis, or it could be about any number of things that he wants to claim that it's about. But it just comes down to the max extension here. And look, I don't think any team should want to give Jimmy a 2-year, $120 million contract, given the injury concern, given the impact that it has on organizations when he just decides he's not happy somewhere. He's kind of made his bed here, and I think Miami also has kind of made their bed too, because they have been very opportunistic in situations where they see an under satisfied superstar elsewhere, and they kind of swoop in and they make these like 40 cent on the dollar type of trade offers, and they get their guy that way. And now the rest of the league is kind of looking at Miami like, ooh, how the turns have tabled. and
The turns have tabled.
Yeah, right. I think that the rest of the league is kind of looking at Pat Riley. It's like, oh, look at this. You don't have the leverage in this situation. So I don't know if Jimmy gets moved, and I don't know if he can feasibly sit out there. If this is all about the money, and now all of a sudden he might have to sit out and lose himself a bunch of money that way. We're talking about a unstoppable force and a immovable object meeting head to head here in quite astonishing ways.
Yeah, and the Beal thing is funny, and we actually got a comment here from Elmer saying, "Does Beal still have a no trade?" And the answer is yes, he does. However,
He does.
according to reports, he's willing to trade. He's willing to waive that depending on the circumstances and the situation and the team. So I think Miami is one of those teams. I think Denver is another one, and the Lakers actually is the other one that Beal said I would waive it to go to those teams.
Don't no.
But that situation itself is quite funny to me because it seems like the Suns are like, yeah, we're looking at deal Beal as well. That hasn't worked out, but do we want Jimmy Butler? And then I again, Butler's got the $50 million opt-in anyway. Worst case scenario for himself there next season. But man, I'm not. I just. There's no way if I was an owner, even if I was Matt Ishbia, who has shown a willingness to spend, there's no way I'm giving Jimmy 2 years and 120 million. Like, no way in the world. And again, I respect what Jimmy has done in the playoffs. I mean, in the bubble there, he was incredible against the Lakers. I think there was no Bam and there was no Goran Dragic for at least a couple of those games. He had the triple doubles. He won 2 games. I mean, he's been to the finals, of course, last year, or 2 years ago now. He took the Heat there from the play-in tournament. Remember, he got them there to the finals. They beat the Celtics. They nearly blew the 3-0 lead. They won in 7. So Jimmy has proven it, but it's the other price, the non-financial price of having him on your roster. And I can't see. I mean, the Suns kind of feel to me like, well, we'll take a flyer on him because their season's kind of unraveling a little bit there. But everyone else, I mentioned the Lakers. I can't see the Lakers. I don't know how they would even make that deal anyway. The Warriors, I think, have been mentioned as well. Same thing. It's like, I'm not sure how that deal gets done, knowing that the Warriors would have to give up some of their youth in order to make it happen. So, yeah, Jimmy's gonna Jimmy, and
yeah. Feels like an episode of Seinfeld.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah,
it's just like the other part of this too that like is super fascinating to me, and I know I've brought it up on other episodes, but Jimmy's generation of player figuring out that the league no longer revolves around them, and no longer bends to their every whim, is really interesting. And look, when Jimmy is right, when he's healthy, and when he's focused, he is a super impactful player. The problem is you only get that for about 30 games a year. And LeBron is somebody else who, like, in years past would have applied a lot more pressure to the Lakers for them to move either of their 2 first-round picks that they can this year. But the Lakers are kind of looking at it like, for what? Are you going? Can you win a championship? And then we're seeing the same thing go on in Golden State, where Steph means more to the Warriors than LeBron to the Lakers, and then Jimmy Butler to the Heat combined. And even he is getting frustrated. Like, he called the team mid. He called them mediocre, and they're reluctant to part with first rounders. Because of what might happen to their. And now, look, I think all of those organizations are wrong, or at least the Lakers and the Warriors one is wrong. This notion that there's going to be some soft landing after LeBron leaves and after Steph retires is farcical. But it's really interesting to watch, these icons of the league and these guys, especially in Steph and LeBron's case, who have kind of single-handedly taken the league to its new heights. Both look at their organizations and say, hey, can we get a little bit of help? Like, can we just move one of the picks? And those organizations are kind of staring them back and saying, like, do you have that in you still? And I think the Heat are kind of there too with that extension. It's like he's saying, hey, I've got you to the finals. I've been a part of some magical series wins and stuff like this. And can I get my extension? And the Heat are like, are you sure you can do that again?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
interesting.
and that's the thing. I think after what happened in the playoffs last year, Pat Riley's like, hang on a minute. I think the clock might be ticking here on Jimmy's effectiveness. Like, yes, maybe in the playoffs he can get you somewhere, but you can't
But you
just
got to get to the
nurse.
playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. You can't just nurse him through a regular season, paying him what you're paying him. I mean, that's just not how they operate. And the Heat, you got to remember, the same thing happened with Dwayne Wade there at the end. They don't sort of bow to anybody, no
Yeah.
matter who you are. And Dwayne was obviously a Heat legend. He ended up going back there, but that situation had been kind of bumbling or bubbling around for a year or two before it finally happened, where the Heat were like, "Listen, man, we're not paying you the bucks anymore. You've
Yeah.
been great. You've won championships. You've got yourself a funky old statue out of it. But
Yeah.
but at the time, it was like, listen, and the game waits for nobody, and that's where Jimmy's kind of finding himself now. And yeah, I'm just fascinated to see what happens, because I think his suspension ends in about a week's time, the 7 games. And if he has been traded or not, or if he hasn't been traded, what do the Heat do now? Because I think they just say stay away and we'll pay you, because they're not paying him while he's suspended. So it's
Well, I think you might have unearthed a fascinating theory here. If Dwayne never makes his annoyance known, does he get a better statue? Like, if Jimmy ends on better terms, would he have gotten, like, is Jimmy Butler now destined for a terrible statue there in Miami? Like,
right.
I can't wait to find out.
Yeah. Wow, that'd be interesting, wouldn't it? If Pat Riley gets the final the say by just putting up crappy statues of people. So
It's gonna be emo Jimmy Butler.
yeah,
Like, his statue's gonna have like a veil of hair over his face.
yeah. Oh man, well, it's all going to ramp up here soon with the trade deadline approaching, and the Lakers have already made some moves there for you. So Dorian Finney-Smith, an upgrade, I'm sure, over D'Angelo. Though again, I'm not sure it moves the needle all that much. But hey, listen, at least they're making moves. At least they're trying to make things happen there, because they needed to.
Yep. Yeah, I think D'Lo's time had kind of run out. JJ Redick really wants to lean into this like switchy, athletic type of basketball. Jared Vanderbilt is supposed to come back here in the next week or so.
God, I've forgotten about him altogether.
So the Lakers. They're like, oh, you think you can come back? And then so that essentially they're going to try, like I had heard word that they are thinking about like playing Vando at some backup center, or like, pseudo center, in the way that guys play center when you're playing positionless basketball. And they want to switch everything. They want to do all that stuff. My only concern is, like, you have maybe 5 or 6 guys who actually fit that style of play.
Yeah.
So we'll see kind of what that looks like. And I think what the Lakers are looking at is how it goes with Vando back in the roster and in the rotation, and how that approach works over the next few weeks. And then, as you get closer to the deadline, figuring out what, or even if you need to use those first rounders on.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out here. And when anything happens, we'll, of course, recap it on our Sunday night show, which usually goes around 8 o'clock Eastern, now that we're back in town. But there was another thing I wanted to talk about, because it was about probably about 8 months or so ago, I got a message from someone who had been following me playing basketball around the world. And they said they wanted to talk to me about one of my experiences, and it was playing in the Balkans. And it was a bit of a mysterious email, but it was also like it was addressed to me, and it was from like a proper email address. It wasn't just a spammy. I get a ton of those spammy emails like, hey, we love your content, you want to collaborate, and they just it's just like the filling in the database, like rather than direct. Anyway, so I spoke to these people. This girl Jess, she was fantastic. She asked me a lot of questions, but she didn't necessarily address exactly what it was for. It was more just a sort of a general research. Well, it turns out that the research was actually for the Luka Doncic Foundation. And on the 21st of December, there on World Basketball Day, he launched this Inside Youth Basketball report. And this is a long report. It's over 100 pages long. But it turns out my some of my interview was used in that, and people and they were using the research to find out about just what pickup basketball means, especially to young people, and how it can impact not only your basketball game but your life and your social skills and things like that. And so inside this report here that's on the official Luka Doncic Foundation, I get a few little quotes in there, and I've got to say I was pretty humbled and pretty excited to see that a report of that nature included some information from me just from basically traveling around the world playing basketball. And the main quote in there was a couple in there, but the main one was, the pickup court is where you fall in love with the game. And I'm really glad they used that one, because that to me really sort of sums up and encapsulates what pickup basketball has meant to me and to a lot of
Yeah.
people around the world. And so, I don't always know exactly, what I'm doing out there and, where this is all going, but to have played basketball like that and to have got that message out there and then to have had it, published in such an important document was honestly just an amazing feeling and quite a big surprise.
That's incredible. Congratulations on that. And I saw what Luca was trying to do, and you're 100% right, Lee. I remember when I was growing up, I played high school ball at this high school where like the head coach of my varsity team was like an ex-football player. He played like at football at the University of Hawaii and like was a PE teacher, and the only gig that he could get coaching, because we had a really good football coach, was coaching basketball. So like he tried to coach basketball the way that you would coach football, and it made for kind of a pretty bad experience, like playing. And it was always so nice to. They had built a 24-hour fitness up the hill from where I lived, and it had an indoor gym and stuff like that. And it was always so nice to get out of practice, from these Neanderthals who didn't really know what they were doing, to just go and just play basketball and get back to like the purity of, the most pure form of the sport, where you want to play, you got to win. And if you want to win, you got to like play as a team player, like is there always a ton of defense played in those games? No, not really. And that made it even more fun because that was not the most fun thing to do, because all of those practices were just defense. So like you go to various regions of the world and you go and you find a basketball court there, and it tends to be this like hub, this kind of fulcrum point of the athletic aspect of those regions. And it's just so much fun to see people who may have nothing at all in common beyond the sport, have maybe never seen each other ever before those moments where they play basketball together. They play together, they pick things up. There's the verbal and nonverbal communication that you figure out there, and the amount of joy that comes from winning a pickup basketball game is pretty tough to equate. So really cool project that Luca is now a part of, and that you are now a part of as well.
I mean, that's a crazy thing. Like that document, that report has got my name in it, and there was a ton of other contributors. I'm not going to pretend that it was, me and Lucas sitting down brainstorming ideas,
exclusive,
or anything like that. But to again just have received that recognition that somebody out there decided, hey, what this guy's doing is cool, and he may have something to offer and contribute. It is really, really humbling, because this is the other thing I remember. I mean, I'm going to drop a name here, but it was about this time last year. I was on the Steam Room pod with Charles and Ernie, and I remember saying to Charles, like, listen, I'm not going to pretend for a second that I could have ever made it to your level. No matter how much I practiced, I tried, the coaching, the train, none of that. There's no way. But in terms of how much we love the game, you can't love the game more than I can. I love
Yeah.
basketball. I love playing. I love competing. I love scoring and shooting and, playing pickup and all that sort of stuff. So on that, we're a level. Now, on the other level, of course, you are, by my definition, a genius in the basketball world to make it to the NBA because, the only the super elite of the world get to that level. And again, I don't know if you played with anyone as a kid who was just like streets ahead of everybody else, but
Yeah.
even those people, those players who were good, to get to the NBA and then to succeed at the NBA, each level up is just an enormous step. And you can't compare it to anything unless you're there. But again, that's from the physical side, from the passionate side, and from the love. I love the game as much as Michael Jordan does. It's just he was a little better at some aspects of it than I was. But
Yeah.
but when you see those players, and they talk about how much they love it, and I'm like, well, I feel the same. I just wish I was able to play it at the same level that you were able to reach. But on this level, I guess Luca and I are peers now. So we'll
Yeah.
have to get together and have some rakia and you shoot the shit and talk about the game and what it means
I
to us. So
I also think it's like the perfect foundation for Luca to be a part of too, because you watch him play, and like you just mentioned about like the love of the sport, right?
yeah,
And he very, very clearly feels basketball
oh yeah,
on a spiritual level, right?
yeah,
Those moments where like he steps back, knocks down that shot against Rudy Gobert,
Rudy.
and
Oh
tells all of the greater Minneapolis area to go bleep itself.
yeah.
Like that's a moment, and that's a a source of joy that you feel if you are doing something that you are like meant to do.
Oh, well, that's right. And when you look at Luka and Jokic is another example of these guys who I don't think feel that passionately about going in the gym and bicep curling weights and
Clearly.
things like that. But again,
Yeah.
it's once they're on the court though, it's like, hey, listen, man, look what happens when they're on the court. They
Yeah.
always want the ball in their hands at the end. They've made huge clutch plays forever. So, as far as a basketball player versus an athlete, they're clearly the player first. But I think that's what's great. Like you can't question, anyone's dedication and commitment when you see the results, and the fire. Like that play, I think over Rudy was considered one of the plays of the year. It was going around the NBA, at the end of last season there. And I mean, it's incredible the step back and then just screaming at him,
Yeah.
like he does. But that's Luca's been like that, since he's come into the league. He's been fiery and he's been passionate. And that I've heard him talk about how he was the same as a kid, when he just played, and when he was a big kid, he towered over a lot of his opponents. But he still remains passionate like that. And so, for me to have a small contribution to his report it's a very, very cool feeling. So wanted to share that one with the
That's
crowd and
awesome.
the audience, and hope people get a chance to look at the report and read over it. And it's a long one. You're going to want to sit down and flick through it. But again, I think there's something in it for a lot of people to relate to and see how it's never for me about the winning and losing. It's just about competing and playing, and and how again you learn social skills from playing pickup basketball. You learn you learn so much. You educate yourself, you educate others, and you're a bigger part of thing. And that actually takes me to the next point too here, because also you may remember a while ago I put up a video about playing at this court in Zagreb in Croatia, still in the Balkans. And this court used to be a really, really important court in the city. And about 12 years ago, I think it was, when Derrick Rose won MVP, they renovated the court, made it look beautiful, and did a fantastic job. But they neglected it since then, and it just rotted away. And when I played, it was over 2 years ago, and it was still fun to play on, and it meant a lot. But the court was, again, it was just rotting, and no one cared about it. Well, my video prompted the local council to actually put some funds towards renovating the court. Now, this video you can see from this message I received is from February last year. So it's almost 12 months ago when they said to me, just wanted to inform you that your video about the court at Tushkanik has prompted action regarding its neglect. Financial resources have been secured. In the next 2 to 3 months, a complete renovation process should begin. Well, it didn't quite work on that timeline, but I spoke with some people from Sabona just yesterday, and the renovation has begun, and it is scheduled to be complete by the spring. So, excuse me, within a couple of months here, hopefully by March or April, that court is going to be renovated and maintained. I think that's the most important thing there, because
Yeah.
as I saw with the Derek Rose update, it was like, yeah, great, you can pump some money into it and make it look nice and shiny and polished, but if there's no continual upkeep and maintenance, then it's just gonna rot away. But again, what a just an incredible feeling to have had that sort of an impact, where people saw me coming out to play. I talked about the court, and they were like, "Yeah, man, that used to be a really important court. We got to do it again." And here we are. Again, a little behind time in terms of that
Yeah.
that
As long
first
as it gets
email.
done.
But I've been talking with Sabona, and I'm hopefully going to be out there for the grand opening. Again, we don't have a sort of final date or to work on right now, but the last email I got from them was they're expecting to get the green light any day soon as far as when it will be open and complete. And I just can't wait, man. I mean, that's whether I go or not. I mean, obviously, I'm going to try very, very hard to get there, but man, to have had that sort of an impact is genuinely unbelievable.
Yeah, again, these courts mean so much more than like the cement that gets poured on in
Yeah,
and like the steel that goes into the beam and what gets made out of the rim. It's just like it's this cultural hub. You think of New York without Rucker. Think of
right.
the Southern California without the various courts that you can play on there. Think of your own, even if it isn't like a super meaningful court that is known around the country or the world, your own local court, and
Yeah,
think about the memories that you made there. If you guys are watching this video, I'm sure that you guys care about basketball on your own levels as well, and that passion for it probably was born out of some. I remember when I was growing up, it was I grew up in a condominium complex. There wasn't even like court lines painted, but
right.
there was a basketball court up the hill from us in a parking lot that I learned how to shoot.
Yeah.
And that's just like that's a place that is always going to mean something for me. So, to have a place that, really means something to this area, potentially and hopefully get figured out and fixed up. And then, like you said, very importantly, maintained afterward. That's going to mean something to like potentially generations.
Oh, absolutely. That's the thing, and that's what's important to me, is because I want kids especially to feel that they can go to the court and it's not like, a place where it's dirty and run down and maybe dangerous, or just parents don't want their kids playing there. You want them to be like, hey, it's a good court, got good solid rims and nets, it's safe, it's clean, it's welcoming, and you can go and really learn the game there. And especially again in Croatia, which a country that made went up against the dream team 33 years ago, and now not even in EuroLeague at the moment. So they were a very strong, proud basketball nation, and it's really just fallen away. And I think that court is almost a microcosm of that. The once proud nation, let things sort of just get away from them, but they've decided, all right, let's put some money back into it, because it wouldn't cost a fortune either. It wouldn't be millions and millions of dollars. You just need someone to put the money up, get it done, and then keep it going. And so, I'll obviously update you on that, but hopefully I'll be out there when it does get complete. I would love to go and shoot some buckets there and talk with maybe Damien Rudez, who's from Zagreb. I spoke to him. I played with him when I was there in Zagreb, and I met Drazen Petrovic's mum out there, and I would love to see if she could be there as well in the grand reopening, because I think it'd be special for her. And man, so anyway, yeah, trying not to sort of get too braggy about it, but it's cool to have had an impact, and
No, you should.
yeah, to
Puff your
talk about
chest
these
out.
things, because I think they're really cool.
I don't think that mic is disconnectable, but like, if you want to drop it, you could drop it. You're good.
I'll drop it when I'm out there. I'll give a little speech, and then I'll just
Yeah.
walk off and go and airball a shot.
Mamba out. Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So last thing here is, what I talked about a little bit off the top of this show. I've just came back from Argentina and Peru over Christmas, and I had one of the most incredible runs I've ever had in Argentina, and it was at this court. I know we talked about this a lot beforehand. It's the Manu Ginobili court there at a place. It's called La Copita, and that is the court there that is dedicated to Manu. And you can see it's got a couple of really important moments in his career. The big block on James Harden, he gets a full mural himself there, but it's the block. How many other courts do you think would have a block as a highlight? Not too many. A signature
Poor
Manu.
James, like he's just like forever
Exactly.
immortalized.
Exactly.
It's getting his shot blocked. Yeah.
Up the top right, you got the Manu sort of, in a Manu sort of Euro
Yeah.
step move there. And then to the left here, if you go midway through the court, you've got the shot against Serbia in the 2004 Olympics there. He's sort of in motion for that. And then the bottom actually honored his other two most, remembered teammates, of course, Tim Duncan and Tony Parker there. So beautiful, beautiful court in a great city. The weather was absolutely perfect while I was out there. And then the run that I had, I mean, I spoke with some guys, and we'd discussed this in advance and said, let's have a run. It was a Friday night. It was just after Christmas. And it was like, yeah, we should get a few people out. And then he said, my friend Tarzan, his name is, he said, why don't we make an event out of it, and we'll have a 3-on-3 tournament. I said, yeah, I mean, of course, throw it out there. So he put a message out on his own Instagram and on the La Copita Instagram. And just take a look at the numbers here who turned up. Look at that. I mean, I haven't even counted, but there's probably, there must be 60 people there, I would think, if not more, 60 or 70 people there who turned up.
Ton.
And that's not everyone as well. There was actually more people. I was like trying to corral everyone and say, come on in, be in the photo. And there were people, they're putting their shoes on, and they're just like, nah, I'm not ready. And it's not a great photo in the sense that, like, I had to get the wide angle to get everybody in.
Yeah.
So I think at least
that's a good problem to have, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's better than when you're trying to, like, you don't want to cut people off. But I mean, just an incredible turnout, beautiful court. And oh man, like, again, when I'm doing these things, when I'm trying to organize a run, I've had situations like in Dubrovnik where people said, yeah, I'm coming along, and 3 people show up.
Yeah.
This one, I'm like, okay.
I want to take a quick second here.
Yeah.
Does Manu's, like, this is a court that forever, like, immortalizes this guy, always looks up to this guy. Does it have a bald spot?
I think so. I think so.
Like, I'm trying to look at it. So you don't see it as much, like, from the top, like here. I think there's somebody blocking it. Somebody standing on his head in that picture.
The shadows. Yeah.
But then I noticed it here, like at the bottom of the picture, there's a bald. Yeah. Come on, guys, you can't give Manu a bald spot on his own court.
Well, I think that's part of the authenticity of it, But
yeah, sorry.
Anyways,
I couldn't help.
No, I mean, so it was a Friday night, and I'm going to be putting together videos of this soon. I mean, again, I've only just got back, so I'm sort of sorting through footage and stuff. Friday night, it was. It started at 6 o'clock and was still going at 1:30 in the morning. Like, dudes still playing. I mean, that was how long the tournament went. They had like almost like a round robin, and then the semis, and then the finals, and the final timed games, and I was, as much as I love the game, I was also there at 1 o'clock in the morning, just thinking, like, I mean, all right, I wasn't expecting this. I thought, but again, in Argentina, and it's a little bit like Croatia in the sense that Argentina haven't made the last World Cup or Olympics for basketball. And this is one of the few nations that actually has won a gold medal at the Olympics. But I think what's happened was they hung on to that golden generation just a little too long and didn't really develop enough youth players. But when I was there, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible how good they are at basketball, how passionate, how competitive, and how physical it was. I can't wait to show some of the videos of the physicality for street ball, and that's where I was like, I'm just surprised that this country hasn't sort of maintained that level of being one of the, you know, one of those teams that you're like, well, anytime there's a basketball World Cup or Olympics, like
Yeah.
Argentina just strolls in. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next, 5 to 10 years, whether or not they get back to being one of those super competitive nations and back competing for medals and championships. Because it's crazy to think it's been over 20 years ago now since they won gold medal, and things have almost gone backwards since then.
Yeah, it's just it's a brutal sport to try to figure out, right? Like, it requires a level of athleticism. Obviously, the number one passion in Argentina is going to be soccer. It's going to be football. And then you try to find guys that are big enough that go out and try to play basketball as well. But as evidenced by the number of people who showed up to play here, there is a love, there is a passion for the sport there in Argentina, and usually that's the starting point, and the foundation upon which it's built. But like, I can say this, as a Mexican who would love to see the Mexican national team be better. We're all like 5'8", so like it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough. I go back home to I'll go back to El Paso, and I grew up. I was a point guard when I was playing in
The
high
UTEP
school and stuff
two-step.
like that. I was like 5'10", and I would go there to El Paso, and I was like, I was, hey, can you run 5? Can you run 5? I'm like, sure. So there's some limitations that some of these countries have to face in their efforts to compete.
Man, 5'10" point guard at the UTEP from UTEP. And you and Tim Hardaway, man, were just
Yeah, UTSC. I found this out over the course of the year. Aaron Jones, the running back for the Vikings, who helped like turn around their entire franchise, also from UTEP. So there's something in the water.
No, there is. You must have been drinking the filtered stuff though, maybe.
Yeah. I didn't get a hold of the good water. Yeah. All I got was Montezuma's Revenge, and they got like all the athleticism. Yeah.
Well, as I say, I'm going to be putting together some videos of my time there in Argentina, the run, the court, the city, and a few other things. So hopefully I'll start sprinkling those out and go a little bit more in depth as well over these next few shows, because there's so much to talk about. There's so much to say, and it was such a great experience. And, again, I think with all these things, most important thing for me is when you go down there and people just welcome you with open arms, and they want you to eat and drink and meet their pets and their family and their kids. And, like it was a long, long night there, but you would be amazed at how many people were there until the end. It was incredible. Like a few people started to sort of sprinkle off, around midnight, but like even after 1:30, the games had finished, people were still just sort of shooting around and having a little bit of one-on-one and stuff. And I'm just like, man, this is incredible stuff. So, hopefully have more of that coming in the next few weeks. But for now, I think that's going to wrap us up from here. As mentioned, Sunday night, we will be back around 8 o'clock Eastern, give or take, depending on exactly what's happening. But we'll be back then talking basketball and see how the Lakers are doing. What do you think, man?
Well, we'll talk about basketball, that's for sure.
All right. So if you've got any questions or comments, hit us up, basketballpassportpod@gmail.com or on any of our socials. Until then, we will see you on Sunday.